on that. And okay, so as you can see, this is welcome to the webinar, everybody. This is supporting your new team members. That's what we're going to be covering this evening. Should take about half an hour or so. And this is number 5 in a series of 8 webinars that I do. You can see there the first 2 or 3, the first 3 are mainly to do with the retail side of the business. That's the catalogue side, the online shop, building your customer base, that sort of thing. Last week and this week are more about the team building side. So last week was more about finding team members, and this is more about supporting them once you've got team members that you're working with. And then the next 2 or 3 over the next few weeks are more about things that you can do to yourself, things that you can change, if you like, in yourself, growing your own personal development, I suppose we call it, and those kind of intangible skills that are really, really useful. So they're all recorded. I'll show you at the end of the webinar where the recordings are kept. But if you find that you'd like to have a look at one of the ones to do with retail, or you want to go ahead to one of the personal development ones after watching this, then you're very welcome to go, because all of the recordings are kept online. So, supporting your new team members. So this is what we're going to cover tonight. Talking a little bit about the numbers. Not everybody that replies to one of your adverts or that you speak to will want to join Kleeneze. So it's important to understand that. Then what to do in the first 7 days when somebody first joins. We're going to talk about some early problems that, if you're not familiar with how Kleeneze works, it's easy to make mistakes. So we want to share our experience with new team members so that they don't make the mistakes that they don't need to. Showing them how to keep track of their business, getting them along to their first meeting. And what I would recommend is that you have some kind of checklist. It's all very well having this kind of training available, but every time you bring a new member in, you don't want to be having to kind of go back and remind yourself about all of your training. So having a little checklist of things to do with a new member I find really, really useful. So, you've got a new team member. Certainly Peter has. He signed up a new team member this week. So this is where the business gets really exciting. But there's also a lot of hard work involved. There's different kinds of work as being a team leader compared to putting lots and lots of catalogues out. And a lot of it is to do with people skills. And somebody once said that your success in oh, excuse me, I still got a bit of a tickly cough here. Your success in Kleeneze will be in direct proportion to the amount of frustration you can deal with. And just like life really, when you're dealing with people, not everybody does the same that you would want to do. Not everybody has the same values, the same ethics, the same beliefs. And you need to be able to deal with that. If you get cross and frustrated with people because they don't do what you did and what you would want them to do, then you're going to struggle. You need to be able to understand that everybody's different in this world. And the other big thing to think about, and I talked briefly at the beginning there, is about the numbers game. You only need 5 serious people to build a huge Kleeneze business. If you look at some of the top earners in the business, people like Bob Webb and Gavin Scott, and when you see a meeting with lots of their team in, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people in the room. And it's easy to think, oh crikey, it would take me forever to recruit all these people. What you only need to realize though is you actually only need half a dozen, say 5 is a good number to go for, serious people, because if they start to team build and they find their 5 and those people start to team build, you can see just as the numbers grow and grow and grow, the vast majority of serious people in Kleeneze business have only recruited a fraction of their team themselves. What they also did though is they showed those team members how to start building their own team. And that's the beauty of a network marketing business like Kleeneze. So the biggest impact you can have on the success of your new team member is the care and support that you give them once they've joined. Now that doesn't mean that is the biggest impact at all, because the biggest impact really is themselves. They have to have a good work ethic. They have to have a good reason for why they're looking to earn money. What are their reasons for joining Kleeneze? And you need to understand that not everybody in Kleeneze will join your team and be successful. Many of them will leave for all sorts of different reasons. Maybe it just wasn't right for them at the time. But all you can ask yourself is, did you do everything you could to support them? If they leave and you found that when you look back on it, you hardly talked to them, you just left them to get on with it on their own. When they had any problems, you didn't help them fix them, or you didn't sort of explain how to deal with them, then you've really only got yourself to blame. But if you've done everything that you could do, then that's fine. You're not going to get everybody to stay. You can then kind of move on and share your love with other people who want to join your business. And a big part of that is keeping in touch. Somebody once said, I think constant communication keeps people inspired, and I believe in that strongly. That if you're talking to your team members, if you're visiting them, if they're local and you're spending time with them, that communication will keep people inspired. And your leaders, the people, the 5 serious people in your team that may not be in your team yet, you will soon find out who they are, because they'll be contacting you regularly, asking you, how do I move on? What do I do next? I'm excited about this. You'll soon find out who your leaders are. So, quick question. How many times, I've said here, how many times should you call a new distributor in their first week? By call, what I really mean is speak to them. So that could be, if it's somebody local, you might visit them, but if they're not local, you might just have to call them on the phone. But just as a rough guess, what would you say in terms of how many times you should contact them in that first week? So Peter said 3 or 4 times. That's good. Anyone else got any thoughts? Some of you might have seen this before. Giselle, 3 times, yeah. 2 or 3, Garth, yeah. Good. Daily says Sue. Okay. So what I would recommend is that you try to speak to them every day. Now that doesn't mean that you actually speak to them every day, because they may be busy, they may not be able to take your call, all sorts of things will get in the way. But if you aim to speak to them every day, that'll make a big difference. And what you're doing in those first 7 days, and these calls, literally, if it's a phone call, it might literally be 30 seconds. One of the first calls that I say is just sort of the day after they've signed up, just ring them up just to say, oh, keep a lookout in the post. I've got a welcome letter that I've posted to you. It should be coming tomorrow. But it just gives them a chance to, if they've got any questions, you can ask them then, and you're showing them that you care, and you're also showing them that you're always there for you. Now, I'm actually going to make some changes to these slides, but I've talked a lot in here about calling them and ringing them up and so on, and that's fine if they're further away. But if they're local to you, and by that I mean probably within about an hour's drive, I would really make a big effort to go and actually spend some time with them if they're happy to do that. And that could be, helping them get their catalogues together, or putting their first lot of catalogues out, or helping them doing their first pickup and so on. Because spending time with them is a really great way to build a bit of kind of rapport between you. So, what sort of things would you say in those 7 days? Well, normally what I do on the day after they've signed up, as I've said there, I just say to them, I've just sent you a little information pack, a little welcome letter. The catalogue should arrive on Wednesday, whatever day they should arrive. Have you got any questions so far? And often they haven't, because mostly the questions, any questions that they had, they'll have asked you before signing up, and the next lot of questions won't really appear until they've got their catalogues and they unpack their bag and everything. So what else would you do? So on day 2, I go through what I call a getting started checklist, and this is just something that I send them in the information pack, the welcome letter that I put in the post. I always include a little checklist, and it's the purpose of the checklist is just to make sure that we both understand what are their reasons for joining Kleeneze. So what are they looking for? If they're just looking for an extra £50 a week, part-time, fitting it around the school run, or if they're looking for to earn a significant income straight away, so they want to learn about team building from day 1, or maybe a bit of both, then that's something that you can obviously help them with once you understand what they want. If you just assume that everybody wants what you want out of your Kleeneze business, then you're going to make some mistakes, because you might be trying to indicate some great team building training to them, when actually all they really want is to do a few catalogues to get find their feet. So I always try and do that with them quite early on. As I say, that getting started checklist, I normally try and go through that with them maybe a day or 2 after they've started, once they've had that initial letter from me. So day 3, hopefully all their kits started to arrive by then. So I normally just give them a quick call to make sure it's arrived. They should also have some stationery which I'll have ordered from them. As I say, maybe the welcome letter. If I couldn't get hold of them the previous day, I might go through that welcome letter with them. And that's really just a chance to sort of check that everything's arrived okay and see if they've got any questions then. Now, if this is somebody who's local to you, I would say this is a great opportunity to say, shall I come over and we can go through the starter pack with you? So that, even if you're not going to necessarily go over there and spend 3 hours with them, but, half an hour just unpacking a few catalogues, showing them the different the different bits that you get in the starter pack and so on. And as I say, it just gives you that opportunity to build that rapport. And so they feel comfortable then calling you because they know you're putting a lot of effort to help them get started. So if they've got any questions, they're much happier to call you once they've met you. They've got a face that they can sort of, that they can put to the voice, as it were. Normally then, maybe the day after that, you would, if they've said when they're going to start putting their catalogues out, then it would be good to give them a quick call after that just to say, how did that go? Because I remember the very first time I put my catalogues out, I put 250 catalogues out. It took me about 3 hours. When I got back home, I went to sleep for 3 hours. I was absolutely exhausted. I couldn't believe how tired I was just going for a little walk. And it's quite surprising. People sort of think, oh yeah, I'll go and put a few catalogues out. How hard can it be? But what you might find is that they came across a few sort of people that they didn't want the catalogue, or they maybe saw another catalogue from some other distributor in the area. So it's really important to speak to them at that point, just to answer any questions that they might have had when they're putting their catalogues out. And then you can also just check with them at that point, when are they going to collect them back up again. So, in a couple of days' time, maybe on the Friday or the Monday, depending on what day it is. And that will give you an idea of, when to give them a call back. Day 5 might just be, have you got any questions, or have they had any phone calls? Because sometimes people will get a call from a customer. If the customer hasn't had a catalogue for a while, they might ring them up and say, oh, I just had your Kleeneze catalogue. Can I just check how long it would take to if I order something? So sometimes they get little questions like that they might have. Again, it's if you miss out a day, then that's not a problem, because everyone's busy as well. And if you've got somebody who's started Kleeneze and they've got a full-time job as well, then they may not be available for you to call every single day. But just kind of showing them that you're there for them is really important. So day 6 might be the day that they've collected their catalogues, and if they've got £150 worth of orders, then it'll be worth putting their first order in. Some people are quite independent and can work out on their own how to quickly put an order in. Other people, if they're not that familiar with computers, or certainly with the Kleeneze system, it's worth guiding them through that, just to make sure that they don't put their order in if it's less than £150, unless they really, really want to. If they've got obviously an urgent, a customer who really wanted something urgently, and they're happy to take the hit on the delivery charge, and obviously they would miss out on their free 50 catalogues if it's in their first 30 days. So hopefully they wouldn't put it in until they've got at least £150 worth. But they might want some help to do that, so that's a good thing to ask them about on day 6. And then day 7, obviously it wouldn't actually be the next day. A couple of days later, hopefully the order will have arrived okay. You can then check, does it all make sense? Have you got the packing list? You could just mention about the packing list. Hang on to the the packing list, because the sticky return labels are on there, so that when they want to do a return, it's useful to have one of those. So just going through that with them, explaining, once they've got the money from their customer, how they can then pay what they owe head office, that sort of thing. So there's actually quite a lot to go through with somebody in their first 7 days. And I find in a way, it's easier to have 5 or 6 short phone calls just covering whatever they might be up to on that day, rather than just once or twice ringing them up and then trying to answer 3 or 4 or 5 questions. Because each time you speak to somebody, it's just a little opportunity to build that rapport. And as I say, if that actually includes a couple of visits, if they're local to you and you're spending some time with them, then that rapport is really strengthened. Okay, so what else do we do at the beginning? Obviously, if there are little errors that people can make, then Murphy's Law is I'm sure they will be made. So things like making sure they've sent their photo in. The sign-up process now is very simple, but it's easy. You don't have to send a photo in at that point if you don't have one on your computer, and people can forget to do that. and if they don't send a photo in within their first 28 days, then their account gets put on, I think it's on stop, might be hold, I can't remember now which way it goes now. But certainly beyond 28 days, if head office don't have a photo, then they won't be able to put orders in. So that could cause a delay just when they're hoping to hit their 30-day challenge, or maybe at the end of a period or something like that. So really try and, within the first week or two, make sure that they've got their photo sent in to head office okay. And just in those early calls, just inoculate them against, we say failure really, but it's just the things that will happen that, everyone knows life's full of ups and downs. Kleeneze is a bit of a roller coaster ride. So it will rain, in this country. You might not believe it with the weather we've had the last few weeks, but it will rain. You will have good pickups where you get lots of orders, and you will have bad pickups where you can sometimes get hardly anything. And you will come across grumpy people that don't like a catalogue and please don't darken my doorstep again. And all I just say to them is, yeah, that's absolutely fine. I think Jim Rohn said there's only half a dozen really grumpy people in the whole world. They move around a lot, and you will bump into them now and again. But and that's just a good way just to sort of just say that's fine. Don't worry about it. Cross them off your list, and then you won't bump into them again. Make sure they've got the names and telephone numbers of your upline, because obviously if they're really keen and they want to contact you, or they've got a question and you're not available for whatever reason, then it's really useful if they know the name of your sponsor and their sponsor, so that they get to understand the concept of network marketing, and also they've got someone to contact if they've got a question and they can't get hold of you. If you've got a local open excuse me, a local open evening that you'll be attending, then and I think if you're team building, you really should be attending all of your local meetings, and even if you're not, it's worth going along to support your team leader and so on, and learn a lot about the business and what you might be missing if you're not being a team builder. And make sure your new team members coming along to an open meeting, because being a Kleeneze distributor can be a bit of a lonely business. If you don't live close to your upline and they don't contact you very much, and you're not aware of any open local meetings, then you can feel pretty much on your own. Whereas getting them along to a local meeting where there's the buzz, they can meet all the other people, you can introduce them to your sponsor and their uplines and so on, and it really gives the whole feeling of something lively going on that they're a part of. People like to be part of something big. Now, if they're not local to you, what I'd recommend is you find where the nearest meeting is to them, find out who organises it, and ring them up and just say, I've got a new team member who'd like to come along to the local meeting. I can't get along there myself, but would you make them welcome? And in my experience, all of the organisers of local meetings are more than happy to do that. Obviously, they want to encourage as many people as possible to their meeting, because it creates a buzz for their team members as well. So if you can't make it yourself, find out who organises it, and then invite your team member and say Graham or Sue or whoever it is that organises the meeting close to them is happy to welcome you to that meeting. And if you can make a bit of an effort and get there yourself, it might not be, if you're down in Plymouth and you've got somebody who's joined in Glasgow, then it might not be practical to pop along to a local meeting. But if it's a couple of hours drive, it's worth an effort, believe me, because it just again builds that rapport with them. Explain the steps to them about building a customer base. So you need to go back once a month, deliver to the same houses half a dozen times to give people a chance to order, and explain all of that to them, because as I say, it's a bit of a roller coaster when they first start off. If you've done this yourself, obviously you can relate your own experiences to them, but explaining to them how to build a customer base so they can see at the moment when they're first starting off, they might only have 4 or 5 or a dozen or so customers, but once they get to the point where they've got 100, 200, 300 customers or more, then excuse me, then obviously they've got a reliable income coming in there from much less efforts than when they first start off. And just talk to them regularly. As I've said there, just kind of repeating myself a little bit, when their kit arrives, after they've done their first drop, checking that went okay, after their first pickup, helping them place their first order and so on. This is all about kind of building that rapport with them and showing them that you take this business seriously and you really care that they are successful as well. Because that's what they want. People want to be understood, and they want somebody who cares about their success as well as that person's own success. Okay, keeping track of how things are going for them. So as I said earlier, one of the things that's really important is to understand how much they want to earn. When they first join the business, people often, they don't really have an idea of how much they want to earn. They kind of just want to know, they know they've got a bit of spare time, they want to earn some extra money. So what I normally do is go through with them a couple of options for them. If are they interested in £50 a week, maybe doing kind of 10 to 12 hours a week, that sort of thing. Are they looking to build this up into a full-time income to replace a job? And then based on what they're looking for and how much time they can spend on it, is it realistic? So if you've got somebody who comes in and says, oh yeah, I've got kind of every morning free, and I'm looking for an extra £50 a week, then that's great. You can show them how to put catalogues out, put their catalogues out once or twice a week, and they'll soon get to the point where they're hitting their 10% level, getting £50 a week, and they can build that up to grow that to £100 a week, just by continuing to do what they're doing. However, if they come in and they say, oh yeah, I kind of need to replace a full-time income, I'm struggling to pay my rent at the moment, so I need £1,000 a month from it, and I've got a couple of hours on a Saturday morning, then that's probably not really realistic. They need to understand that they need to have some time based on what they're looking to earn. So make sure you can kind of understand that with them, and they understand how many catalogues they need to put out, just on the retail side initially. How many catalogues do they need to put out to earn £50 a week or £100 a week? Because as I said, if they're not being realistic, it's better that they know now, so they can start off smaller and build it up into bigger over a period of time. So keeping track of that, you can see as your excuse me, as your team members put orders in, you can see how many orders they're putting in. So that things like the 30-day challenge, which is a great way to get all their free catalogues, heading towards their first 10% bonus and so on. You need to keep track of that, because they may not be aware of the dates of the period ends and so on. And if they're 20 or 30 pounds short of hitting a 10% bonus, so they could get a £50 bonus from that, then it's really useful to let them know that, so they could just either put a few extra catalogues out, or even if they need to, just buy a few things for themselves and the family, just to get them over that 10% limit, that 10% bonus, because they'll make £50 on that, even if they have to put a small order in and pay £5 delivery charge. So keeping track of how they're getting on is really, really important. And as I've said there, explain the bonus system to them so they get to understand the concept of the 28-day periods, what are the start and end dates, and where can you go to check how many bonus points you've got and so on. Because once you've been doing it for a couple of months, it's fairly straightforward. But when you first start off, the concept of bonus points and SPVs and so on is quite alien. So you need to kind of help them through those first few weeks with that. And just really help them set their first goals. I work very closely with all my new team members to make sure they're aware of the 30-day challenge and how they can hit and what they can earn from that. The 10% bonus, at the end of each period, and the 90-day challenge as well, because there's more that they can earn from that on top of their 21% commission from their orders. So making sure that they're aware of their goals, how many points you need to hit each goal, what the date is, that you need to get your last order in by 9 PM on Thursday, whatever the date is. Make sure they're aware of that and you're aware of that. So the last thing you want is for somebody to be disappointed that they miss out on a bonus and they start blaming you because they didn't realize they could have got one. So make sure you're aware and that you keep them aware as well. Meetings and the local kind of trainings and millionaires colleges and so on are really, really important for a whole range of reasons. Excuse me, it's lubricating my throat. So if you're a team leader, I would say you really need to make a big effort to go to as many of the meetings, the trainings, the webinars and everything that you can. You need to show your new team members that they're important. And they are, because you get inspiration from them, you get information. It gives you a big chance to introduce your new team member to a buzz. The whole thing about the recognition that you get from Kleeneze that you very rarely get in an office job or in an ordinary job. And if you don't have a webinar or a local meeting or whatever, and you're thinking to yourself, oh, I wish I had a good leader around here, a good team leader who would organise something. Why not be that team leader yourself? There's nothing stopping you from organising a little meeting, a little kind of sizzle for your team. You could invite some cross-line if you've got sort of friends that you've met at local meetings who want to do something similar. Why don't you get together with them, some of their team members, some of your team members, and you can start your own little team sizzle. You don't have to wait for some sponsor or team leader to organise something that you want to organise yourself. Okay, I talked earlier about having a checklist. I'm not going to go through all of this in detail, but as I said at the beginning, this is recorded. If you want to come back to this and go through a bit in a bit more detail and come back to me, that's fine. But just have, rather than trying to remember every time you have a new team member, oh, what are the things that I need to do and help them with, have a little checklist. So you go through, the information that you need to send them. What email should you send them? Add them to your own email list. Send them a welcome letter. Order some starter kits for them, making sure that their catalogs arrive, all those sorts of things. Have a little tick list so that you can tick them off as you go through them with your new team member. And then, obviously, hopefully, having a new team member, what that will do is will increase your own bonuses by increasing your personal sales group. So it's important to track your own PSG. And the PSG is, for those of you who are not familiar, it's basically those team members who are in your team who have not yet got to gold. So when you're first starting off, typically you might have sort of 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, who knows, a number of team members that will all contribute towards your PSG. And when you get to gold, that means that you and your PSG, you and all of your team members combined put in about £9,000 worth of orders in a period. If you then have one of your own team members who themselves starts to team build and they get to gold, then once they're in gold, they kind of become a bit more independent from you and they're outside of your PSG then. You still earn bonuses from them, but they're not in your PSG. So that's what I talk about. If that didn't make sense, speak to your sponsor or let me know and I'll try and explain it a bit more after we've finished. But in your personal sales group, it's worth tracking that because obviously this might mean, hopefully, if you've got team members, that you're approaching new bonus levels. And it's really important for you to understand where you are on those bonus levels. Because if it means that you're very close to hitting 13% or 15% or 18% and you want to go out and put a few extra catalogs out, it's good to know that as you're approaching the end of the period, rather than on the Thursday suddenly thinking, oh crikey, I think I'm going to be about £50 short, and having to go and somehow drum up £50 worth of business in a couple of hours on a Thursday afternoon. So tracking that as you go along is a good way just to sort of make sure you hit your own bonus levels. And if you're looking to grow your business, which I presume you are if you're team building, then you should be monitoring your own activity. So how many active distributors do you have each period? Is that number going up? If it's not, if you're bringing 1 or 2 in, but 1 or 2 are leaving each time, then you might need to look at, do I need to increase the number of people that I'm bringing in? Or do I need to spend a bit more time with my new team members to try to get them to stay in the business a bit longer? Maybe I'm not supporting them well enough. Also, you should be looking at how many new distributors that you're bringing in. If you've got 1 or 2 fantastic team members who do loads of activity, loads of retail, and you do the same yourself, then that's great. But you need to, if you're wanting to grow it, you need to bring in new distributors as well. And so monitoring how many new ones you're bringing in, how many serious distributors you've got. And by that I just mean it's kind of your own definition really. You will have people who are in your business who are just kind of putting a few catalogs out. They might make 10% or they might not, but they're not kind of what you would call serious. They're not talking to you regularly. They're not asking about how they can grow their business. So keeping a track of how many serious distributors you've got is really useful for you as well. And then at the end of the period, you obviously just want to know what is the overall sales from my team, from my group, because you want to see if that's growing as well, because that's directly related to your own income. And a good phrase again from Jim Rohn there, what we're all looking for is measurable improvement in reasonable time. And if you think that you're improving things and you can see that you're improving it and it's going at a time that you're happy with, then that's great. Okay, so I think we're coming towards the end now, guys. A few little questions just to see if any of you are still awake. how many serious people do you think you'd like in your team? Oh, Peter, you're quick off the mark there, Peter. 5 or more, that's good. Anybody else looking to team build? 10 from Sue, yep. One of the things that 5.6, Garth, very good. 5 or 6, I'm guessing. Yeah, Sue says 10 there. That's an interesting figure because Kleeneze have a recognition called 10 active wide, which is if you've got 10 people who are frontline to you, who are all doing at least 250 bonus points. So what's that, about 350 pounds worth of orders in a period, so not too difficult to do that. If you've got 10 people doing that, that's called 10 active wide, and you get a recognition from head office if you do that for 3 periods on the trot. So yeah, 10 is a great number, and it just gives you that security over and above 5, because at any time I suppose one of your serious guys might drop out, so if you've got 10 it gives you that security. Yep, I said there, aim for 5 senior team members. If they get to gold, that gets you to SED, Senior Executive Distributor, which is a significant step in the business. So, how often should you, I've said their call, but obviously that includes visit or talk to them. How often should you speak to your new starters at the beginning? Yeah, daily, yeah. That's what I've said. I don't think, if you kind of have to judge it a little bit. Sometimes you speak to somebody and they're obviously very independent, and maybe they're really busy and that you kind of get a feeling they don't want you calling them all the time. So you need to judge that. I'm not sort of saying stick to it by the letter, always ring somebody up every single day, even if they've told you that they're going to their mother-in-law's funeral or whatever. You might want to stand off a little bit. Yeah, it's difficult, Peter. If people are not answering, what I would say is, there are some people that are uncomfortable on the phone. They don't really like to answer. What I would always do is always leave a message for them. Send them a text message. Maybe people are happier replying by text. Send them an email. I think one of the things you have to recognise, it's happened to me a few times. You get somebody, they join, and then as soon as they've joined, they start to have second thoughts, and suddenly you just can't get hold of them. So if that's the case, there's not a lot you can do, Peter. All you can do, as I said, is if they do leave, did you do everything that you could to try to help them? And if they're not answering and they're unwilling to return your calls or talk to you, then there's not a lot you can do about that. You can't go and just knock on the door and march in and say what the hell's going on, because that's not going to get you anywhere either. So yeah, as I said there, every day in their first week. So, just wrapping up tonight then, what we've covered is just understanding the numbers, the fact that there will be people that join your team that decide not to stay, and don't panic, that's not necessarily your fault, as long as you feel that you've helped them as much as you possibly can. What to cover in the first 7 days, a bit about anticipating early problems, helping them keep track of where they are, making sure they hit all their bonus levels if they're going for them, trying to get them along to their first meeting and have a little bit of a checklist. Good point from Sue Marshall there to add on to your checklist. It used to be that head office would always send the bank gyros to new distributors, and obviously when people get their orders from their customers, if you get any customer who gives you a check made out to Kleeneze, the only way to get that paid in is by using a bank gyro at a branch of the NatWest. So you can just request that from your online Kleeneze account. There's a button there, you just click on and get the gyro slips, and they get sent to you. You get a big bunch of them sent straight away. But it's useful to get those before you need them, really, because otherwise you might get a check, and then if you don't have a bank gyro, you've got to wait a week before you get one and you can pay it in. Thanks for that, Sue. Okay, so just wrapping this up, this was number 6. Oh, sorry, this is number 5. So next week we're moving away from the team building and the catalogue side into, I've called it building your business. It's really kind of growing your business by growing yourself. What skills do you need? What kind of beliefs and personal development do you need to grow a successful Kleeneze business? So that's what we'll be covering next week. I mentioned earlier that all of these webinars are recorded, so if you wanted to go through this one again or go back over any of the other ones, or if you can't wait till next week and you want to watch some of the personal development ones, you can watch them from when I recorded them last time. They're all on YouTube, and if you just go onto YouTube and do a search for Chris Smith Kleeneze, you'll find me on there, and you can just click on subscribe, and then obviously you'll get a notification every time I put a video up there. So I'm just going to turn off the recording for this one.